Hi everyone, welcome to another Caketastic Cakes video. I'm going to show you how to make DanTDM. He's a YouTuber, he does a lot of Minecraft. My boys love to watch him play video games when I won't let them play video games, so I'm sure a lot of you can relate. And here we go. Oh, and don't forget to like and subscribe, please. Thank you. Okay, we're starting with the pants, his nice blue pants. Rolling it out between those two pieces of wood. They are, I want to say, about a ½ an inch thick. I should actually measure it one day, but I'm lazy, so yeah. Just take the blue, roll it out flat, cut it into a nice rectangle shape. It can be pretty much any size you want. And this guy, I want to say his pants are maybe about 2 by 1.5, so it's not a very good, very noticeable rectangle, but it is a rectangle, darn it. You don't want to make his pants too long though, because he has brown boots on that we're going to be adding in a few moments, so don't forget about that. Take your blue, run it through with the lollipop stick. It's about 8 inches long there. And here we go. Here, this is the brown for the shoes. Take the brown, the same pieces of wood, roll it out, cut yourself a wedge. Oh, how thick is that? Maybe a 1/4 of an inch, a little more, 1/3 of an inch thick. And turn it onto its side like that. Run that lollipop stick right on through it. Push it up, level it out with your knife. Just try to make sure your edges stay nice and flat. I've said it before, when you run things through on that lollipop stick, it bunches a little, so it kind of like dips in where the pressure is. So you got to be careful to smooth it all out nicely. So that's what I'm doing there. And use your knife, make an indent down the front and the back to indicate pants and the separation of the feet. All right, this little strip of brown I'm going to be putting across his legs in a moment. Apparently I didn't like that piece, so I moved it out of the way. If you need a nice straight piece, try to make it as even in the thickness as you possibly can. It's going to go straight across where his knees are, and it wraps all the way around his legs. So that's why I'm putting water around the sides, the front, and the back. When you have enough water on there, you just want a little bit. You don't want too much. Just carefully peel it up, because if it sticks too much, you'll end up stretching it, making thin spots. Lay it over and just start wrapping it around. Just wrap it around, press it on, press your corners down nice and tight, and connect the two edges on a corner because the seam is a lot less noticeable. When you have it all in place, nice and even, see there's the seam on the corner there. Use your knife blade and press it down, make those two separations again, and now he's got his, I don't know, knee guards on, whatever his character uses. This black that I rolled out, same thickness as before, is going to become his shirt. It is going to have to be the same thickness as the pants because you don't want it being all weird looking. So this is what I'm doing. I'm just holding it up and seeing how close I am. I'm usually pretty close, but I am also usually not exactly on it, so you might have to trim it away a little bit. When you find a width that works, then you're going to have to go with the length. Make sure the length is shorter than the pants, otherwise he's going to have a giant torso. So this is usually more of a perfect square. Same thing as before, a little bit of water to connect the two pieces, run it down the stick, make sure your edges are straightened out. Those are fondant smoothers that I use for cakes, and they work great for edging out your Minecraft figures. You got to keep them nice and sharp. All right, this thin rectangle is the same piece from before. It's the same thickness as before. It's going to become the sleeves of his shirt. He wears long sleeve shirts, so his sleeves are going to go down about to his waist length, maybe a little bit above. As long as you're right around the waist, then it's going to look good. You don't want his arms too long or too short because it really makes him look kind of weird. And you can also see that his arms are pretty chubby there. They were like the thickness of his legs. So I just went back and thinned it out a little bit so they look more like arms and not like thighs coming out of his shoulders. A little bit of water on the side and press it against it, press it into place. Same thing with the other arm, a little bit of water, and then press it onto his side into place. When you press it, you might end up changing the shape a little bit, so you might need to readjust it with your blade or something to keep those edges sharp, but I'm so good that you didn't even have to see me do it, so yeah, we'll pretend that's the reason why. This is another thin piece of brown. He's got these brown stripes all over him. This is going to be his belt. His belt's going to go across the front and the back, but for right now, I'm only doing the front. I don't know if you guys have watched my other Minecraft figures, or actually I think it was Lego figures. And when you have things laying down like this that you're working on, you typically don't want to put things on the back until it's firmed up a bit, because if they're soft and you lay things on them, you're going to smush them and kind of misshapen them. So put the belt on, make it nice and straight. There you go. This is going to be more of the little brown stripes, and this is going to go around his sleeves. He has elbow pads on, I think, is what they're for. So that's what this brown is going to be. Just roll it out nice and thin, cut out a nice even stripe. You can see the water I put on the sleeve, on the sleeves right around the elbow joint. It doesn't go across his chest or his back, so what you have to imagine here, you'll see in a second, I'm sorry guys, is that I was cutting off the piece that overlapped. I wrapped it around his whole body and then just trimmed off the edges. Trim it right into the seam between his arm and his body, so that way it will tuck in a little bit. You can see what I'm doing right here with that perfect editing right there. And lift it off, and then it fits in nice. It's tucked in. It doesn't stick out weird or anything. Okay, make sure the belt on the back, now we do the belt on the back, is nice and level, just the same as before, another stripe, make it as thick as the front. And this is a little time jumpy kind of thing right here. The peach that I rolled out, I made a big square. It's about 1 inch by 1 inch in diameter and width and everything. That would be his head, and I made 2 little cubes that match up the sleeves to make his hands, and just a little bit of water, put them into place. The head now, we're going to add the hair. I'm just cutting out brown because his hair is very Steve-like. So we've got the brown. I cut a straight edge just to start me off. I put the head on, and now I'm just tracing around it. I'm using it as a guide rather than trying to just wing it. So that's all I'm doing here. Using my X-Acto knife, trace it out, pick it up, add some water. That's going to be the back of his head, by the way. Add some water, and then press it all into place. You can see it stuck on there at the bottom of the screen. This little piece I'm doing right here is going to become the side of his hair. It is going to be a little bit shorter. You can see from the other cut that it's not as far down. And you're basically making like a letter L shaped. You're going to have a real skinny side and a real fat side. The real fat side is going to go toward the back of the hair, with the other skinny part coming up and over where his ear would be. And just put it into place. It probably isn't going to fit perfectly. That's not a big deal. Just lay it on, have the front part overlap a little bit, and then trim off anything extra that you don't need. And when you have it all measured out, that's when you add the water and make sure it'll fit and is in the right place. And then what you do to the one side, you do to the other side. So that's going to be the other side of his head. Make sure you do your L in the opposite direction this time, because if you do it in the same direction, you end up with 2 sideburns and everything on for the same side of the head. And that's no good. Nobody wants that. See, I'm just kind of holding it up to see how my cuts are doing right there. Trim it out as you need, and then stick it on, just like you did the other one. This rectangle here is nice and simple. This is going to be the bangs that go across the front of his head. And a little bit of water, press it into place, and there you go, bangs. Now he's got bangs, he's got sideburns, he's got the back, and he's got a bald spot. In order to fill in the bald spot, cut yourself out a rectangle. You can measure it up like you did the other one if you want, or wing it, because that's kind of how I roll. I tend to wing things. Cut out a rectangle, stick it on top, trim off the edges however you see fit. And then once you get your measurements all nice and level and where they should be, that's when you're going to add the water. So you see here that I got the width right, good May, and I just had the length too wrong. So I just trim it off, mark it with my knife, trim it off, add some water, and then stick it on. Stick it on. There we go. Okay, now it's on. All right, there you go. Now we've got a head for Dan. All right. Get out your black. Black is going to be used for his goggles that his avatar guy wears. I'm sorry, his skin wears on his head. I'm cutting out a real thin stripe. That's going to be the part of the band that goes around his entire head. And I cut that out first, and I realized I should have done the goggle part first. So I'm just going to have him hold it for me. There we go. Just hold that. Thank you. All right. What you probably want to do first is cut out the squares for the goggles themselves. Very carefully, use your X-Acto knife, roll it nice and thin. You don't want it too fat, and only a little bit bigger than what his bangs will do. So you're going to roll it out, cut it out, And then try to cut nice squares. 2 nice squares. Make them the same size as close as possible. And you want to keep your edges as sharp as possible also. In this case, it's pretty important. Once you get good sizes, add your water on your paintbrush, add it to the back of the goggles, and place them on. Make sure when you put them on, you put them up on his hair like I'm doing there. It doesn't quite sit down over his face. And they're close together, but they're not touching, so leave a little space in between them. And they're pretty much going to end up lining up with his eyes when you put his eyes on in a few minutes. So now we're going back to that thin stripe he was holding for us. Cut off the edge, make sure it's nice and sharp. A little tiny nip is all you need, and then you place it in between the goggles. Those are going to be this little piece of the strap between the two lenses, I guess they'd be. And the rest I'm going to just place and roll his head around and stick it down with some water. When it comes around the other side, I just trim off the extra on the other end. And there you go. Now he's got his goggles on. To make the eyes, I made 2 squares a little bit smaller than the goggles and just cut out a little square in each inner corner down at the bottom and made a little black to fill it in. For some reason his character has very big eyes, not the typical little rectangle eyes. And a thin little black rectangle for a mouth. In order to make the lenses on the goggles, I'm using a very light blue color. It kind of looks white here, but it's actually a very light blue, very light sky blue. And just make 2 little squares, very thin, just like before. Just make the squares a little bit smaller than the goggles, so it looks like the goggles are framed out with the lenses. Very carefully put them into place. Try to make sure everything lines up and is angled properly, otherwise it's not going to look good. These little details really start to matter here. And there you can see the one is done, which due to one, due to the other. I say that a lot. And there you go. Place it very carefully. Yep, that's crooked, but I ended up fixing it. Just straighten it out. Now he's got a head, now he's got a body. Put the 2 together, and he looks pretty darn good. And he's not done yet, so don't go anywhere yet. Got a few more details to add. We're going to add a little bit of blue of his shirt. That's right in his collar, because I guess he wears a sweatshirt or something. Cut a blue rectangle, a small one, not too big, you can see it there. And just place it right there in the center under his chin. And then get out your yellow. Your yellow is going to be used to make the pads on his knees, as well as his belt buckle. So all I did was roll it out really thin. Cut yourself a rectangle, any, whatever looks good as far as size for his belt buckle. I'm just trimming it down a little bit because the piece I had was kind of silly big. He's not like a cowboy, so we didn't want a giant one. Make it so that it fits nicely on his belt. A little bit of water, press it into place, and there you go. With his knee pads, they start on the strap that you put on across his knees, but then they go upwards. So you're going to want a longer rectangle. And you're not going to center it, like I said. You're going to have it so it sits at the bottom of the strap, but then goes up above the strap, not below it. So you need 2 of the longer rectangles. If it gets a little rough on the edge, you can smooth it out. If it sticks to the board, it makes me crazy. And press it into place, and there. And I got a little water spot. Don't worry about that kind of thing, though, because it will dry. So there you go. There's DanTDM, folks. Doesn't he look lovely? He's got his pads, he's got his goggles, he's ready to go. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you found this helpful or you enjoyed it, and check out my other videos. Thank you. Bye.